Welcome to the Property Punch podcast, your go-to blend of bold property insights, straight talking strategy, and wealth building wisdom. We serve it short, sharp, and full of flavor, made for people who want real results for real estate. Each week, we'll stir together some tips, smart moves, and practical advice to help you grow your portfolio, create passive income, and build wealth one sip at a time. No fluff, no jargon, just a property brew you actually want to drink. So grab your glass. It's time for your weekly pour of Property Punch. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Property Punch podcast. I'm your host, Thabo. Today, we're busting 3 big property myths that stop people from getting started in property. Joining me is someone who has helped hundreds of Australians build their property portfolios. Mentor, strategist, and co-founder of Your Wealth Mentor, I have with me today, Washington. Hi, Washington.
Hi, Thabo.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Very good, thanks. How are you, Thabo?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
That's good.
So what have you been up to lately, business-wise, with Your Wealth Mentor? I've heard that it's growing well. You have lots of clients and are building client lists and helping Australians around the country with their property portfolios and their property journeys. So tell us a bit more about that.
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. And today I'm looking forward to be busting those common myths regarding property investments. But yes, we've been busy actually, we're always growing our clientele base, helping our clients to achieve their goals. Today is the last day of the financial year, so we've been quite busy, people trying to get into the property market before the end of the financial year so that they can maximize their investments before the end of the financial year. So we've been busy with that, but also we've actually been going around the country visiting the sites of where we are recommending our investors to buy a property. We want to make sure that wherever we are recommending investors to buy property, we are actually going there physically, making sure that those are the good locations that they are buying their investments at.
And it's that commitment to making sure that your clients get the best deals and always put their money in the best places and locations that has allowed you to really grow Your Wealth Mentor to almost a community of like-minded investors and people who really want to really grow their portfolios to the best of their ability. And that's something that we find really amazing.
Absolutely. One thing for sure that I would like to tell you is that when we visit sites and when we go to the locations where we are recommending our investors to go into, first of all, they are actually locations that we ourselves are actually investing in those markets as well. So we're not just only, pushing someone somewhere where we wouldn't go. We'd actually put our own monies in some of those locations. We've got some investments there. But most importantly, when you visit a site, it's part of product knowledge. You know where the schools are, the shops are, the public transport and all that. There's just something about when you've been to a place, you're familiar with it, and it brings you more confidence even to recommend that location.
Maybe we should start in busting the myths and talking about what these 3 big myths are of today's podcast session. And personally, I think it's wild how many smart and capable people put off investing for months or even years because of some things that they might have heard or read online that may have changed how they view investing or might have changed how they think of themselves as prepared or being ready to enter that space. So today, we're going to try and set the record straight.
Let's dive into it.
All right, so the first myth on our menu today is you need to be rich to invest in property. Washington, how often do you hear this one?
Oh, look, mate, this is the most common myth that we often hear about people giving excuses of not getting into the property market. So some people think that they need 200, 300,000 to put in as a deposit to buy property, and that's not true at all. We work with different types of clients from different backgrounds, from different professional backgrounds, some nurses, some teachers, some are even single parents. The fact of the matter is that you don't need a lot of money to actually get into property. You probably need as little as about 50,000 you can get into the property market. But sometimes if you have built on some equity, you can actually use that equity to get into your other properties. So in actual fact, you don't need a lot of money to get into the property market. Or what it needs, however, it needs for you to have a plan and to make sure that you follow that plan and you're using the right vehicles to actually acquire your portfolio of assets.
I feel like that's a very comforting and good thing to hear, that something that lots of people who talk about wealth building and wealth creation, they really say that investing in property is a very important step in that and a very important tool to really build that wealth, not just for yourself, but maybe for your family and for the long term. So it's good to hear that anyone can invest in property really, and that ship hasn't sailed for them.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Actually, interestingly, on that topic of, you don't need to be rich to buy property. One of the things that our viewers need to be aware of is that sometimes when you are planning about your financial future, it's not about how much you earn. It's actually about what you do with it. I've got clients that are on an average income of, let's say, 60, 70,000 a year, that really put their money wisely. They save and they make wise investments. They have achieved more things than some people that earn $200,000, $300,000 a year. So it's not about how much you earn, but it's rather about what you do with it, making sure that you are taking time to plan for your future and making sure that you're making some right decisions and not making some common mistakes that we're going to talk about later on.
So our second myth of today is that, and this is a classic, it's not a good time to buy in the market. It's simply too risky. What are your feelings about that one?
Oh yes, that old timing, question that we often hear from clients or from people in general. So at the end of the day, it's not about timing the market. We're what we call timing the market. So most people, they're trying to really maximize their profits by trying to jump in the right time. Property, as we know, is a long-term game. A lot of things happen in the property market. Interest rates go up, interest rates go down, politicians make noise, we hear all these things in the media. So a lot of things happen. At the end of the day, it's not about listening to all those things. It's about making sure that you've got a plan in place. You've also got time in the market as well.
I think most people who want to enter the property market, they might use the excuse waiting for the perfect time. And often that perfect time may never or doesn't ever come. So what's some advice for people that have been trying to wait for the perfect time? And is there a better time to enter versus not so good or more risky? Or is that whole conversation about timing just pure fluff?
Yes. So as I said earlier on, property investments are for the long term. You're not going to be making money in property over 6 months. If you're going to be doing that and come out in 6 months, then it's too risky. However, the longer the time, then the more returns that you're going to earn. And when I say long term, I'm probably talking about a period of time where it's about 10, 15, or even 20 years time. So consistency is the key, making sure that you're sticking to the plan. But in terms of trying to jump in which property market is hot, look, at the end of the day, this is where we teach our investors about looking at the fundamentals, the key to making sure that you're entering the right property market at the right time. And we've got some tools that we have that assist us to have that conversation and making sure that when our clients are getting into the property market, they're actually getting into something with which ticks all the right boxes. For example, making sure that you're looking into the market where there's infrastructure, there's government spending, there are schools, there are hospitals and all that. Because those factors are what creates demand in property. And making sure that with that, when the fundamentals are right, making sure that those properties are actually going to go in value over the long term.
And even in today's market, there can be smart moves to be made.
Absolutely. A good deal at any time in a steady market will always beat having to wait in the property market where you're procrastinating to wait for a crash, because crashes will never happen. I remember when we first entered into the property market, myself and my wife, we bought back in, I think it was 20 years ago. And we had some friends that were, scared of, property prices then. It was around 450,000 to get your first home. And they said, properties are going to go down in value. There's going to be a market crash. That never happened. Fast forward now, those markets are probably 1 million plus. So if you're waiting for the property to crash or for the right time to make sure that you're getting in there, wanting to have some short-term profits, then you're probably going to regret. The earlier you go there, making sure that you can afford it, lining in or, connecting you to the first question that you said, you need a lot of money to invest. Just making sure that you're not overcommitting. You're buying something that you can afford at the right time, making sure that it's ticking all the boxes in terms of what you're buying, infrastructure, next to hospitals, next to schools, so that, you can actually find tenants. Then as long as you tick all those boxes, you're actually buying in a good market and making sure that, you're also buying that property at the right price to start with as well.
We're up to our third and final myth. And this is a really big one that even I and some friends have talked about. And it's that debt is bad. And that property is too risky because it comes with a loan. What's your opinion about that myth?
Oh, yes. The fear of debt is real. But it's important for you to know the difference between good debt and bad debt.
I know you love that conversation. So how about you give our viewers some insight into what the difference is between good debt and bad debt?
Gladly so. So bad debt is when you wreck debt and you buy, things that that lose value. For example, you get debt to buy a car, or you take debt and go on a holiday that you can't afford. So that is bad debt. That's an example of bad debt. Whereas good debt is actually acquiring debt to buy assets that grow in value, which we call appreciating assets. But there are also other advantages to good debt. For example, besides the fact that the value goes up, receiving an income from those assets. For example, if you're buying a property, then you're actually receiving rent from your tenants. But most importantly, the final one is that the cost of servicing that debt through interest, you can actually claim that cost on tax as a tax deduction.
Really?
So a good debt should actually have those three elements. Appreciating in value, you are receiving an income through, for example, rent, and also the cost of serving that debt is tax deductible. So that's a good debt. That's a true good debt. And it's very, very important for our viewers and our listeners to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, because good debt will help you to stride along to make sure that you are building assets, whereas bad debt can actually cripple you. It can actually take you way behind financially.
So using the bank's money wisely can actually increase your net worth.
That's exactly right, because you can actually use rent to pay off the mortgage from your tenants. And then over time, the property grows in value. So you can actually turn debt into building equity over the long term. And that's what we are helping clients to understand between the difference between good debt and bad debt.
So it's almost like a mindset shift, shifting from a sense of fear of what debt is and that big D word to using it as a strategy. And
that's absolutely right. It's like a light bulb moment when you know the difference, because you can now say you don't want any debt to like you want to actually accumulate more debt, which you use it wisely to actually build your wealth. And there's a big difference in the shift of that mindset.
Well, now that we've essentially covered all three of these big property myths, let's do a quick recap. The first is that you need to be rich to invest, which we found out was false. The second is it's too risky right now. And the answer to that is not if you think about the long term and see it as more of a long-term game rather than a short-term one. and that debt is too dangerous, which is only if you don't use it wisely.
Exactly right. So don't let fear or misinformation hold you back. If you've got any questions, get educated, get advice, and keep moving.
Get educated, get advice, and keep moving. Washington, thanks for pouring your wisdom into this episode. Where can people reach out to you if they want to learn more, maybe get started or start planning?
You can check us out on yourwealthmentor.com.au, or you can follow us on all the major socials on @yourwealthmentor. We're always happy to help.
That's it for this week's pour on the Property Punch podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, share it with a friend, leave us a review or comment, and subscribe so you never miss your next sip. Until next time, keep planning, keep investing, and as always, sip smart, invest better.